Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vyasa Uvacha Iti Samprasna Samritso Vipranam Romaharsane Pratipuja Vachastesham Pravaktum Upachakrame.
Hare Krishna. Yugrashrava Sutta Goswami, the son of Ramaharshana, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmins, thanked them and thus attempt to reply.
Sutta Uvacha Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apetkrityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putretitan Mayataya Sarov Vindyas Tam Sarvabhuta Hridayam Munin Anatusmi.
Srila Sutta Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the great sage Sukadeva Goswami, who can enter the heart of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life sannyasa, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher castes. His father, Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, 'Oh, my son, indeed, only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation echoed in response to the grieved father.'
Ya Swanubhavam Akila Shruti Saramekam Ajatmadipam Atitir Satam Tamon Dham Samsarinam Karunayaha Puranaguyam Tam Vyasasunam Apayami Gurum Muninam.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Sukha, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke with most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated by its experience.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto this personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Risi, the suppermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
Munayaha Sadupristoham Bhavadbhir Lokamangalam Yatkrita Krishna Samprasno Yenatma Suprasidati.
O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self.
Savaipamsa parodharmo yato bhakti radokshaje ahitukiya pratiyata yayatma suprasidati.
The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self.
Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asuvairagyam Gyanam Chayada Hoitukam.
By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world.
Dharmasvanastitaha pumsam vivakshena katostaya notpayayat yati ratim shramaheva ikevalam.
The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead.
Dharmasya hi apavargasya narto artayo pakalpate nartasya dharmai kantasya kamolabhaya hi smritaha.
All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification.
Kamasya nindriya priti labho jivate ya vatha jivasya tattva jignasa narto yascheha karmabhi.
Life desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's work.
Vadanti tat tattvasvidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate.
Oh my God. Learn transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan.
Tachad dadana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashyanti atmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihitaya.
The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes the absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from Vedanta Shruti.
Atapumbe dvijashreshta vanashrama vibhagasaha swanutistasya dharmasya samsiddhi haritoshanam.
Oh, best among the twice born it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life to please the personality of Godhead.
Tasmad ekana manasa bhagavan sattvatam pati shrotavya kirtitavyascha dveya pujasta nityadha.
Therefore, with one pointed attention, we should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees.
Yadhanud yasina yuktaha karma granti nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat kathartim.
With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work karma by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message?
Shushruso shradadannasya Vasudeva Katha Ruchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipraha Punyatirtha Nisevanat.
O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva.
Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridayantastohi Avadrani Vidanoti Surit Satam.
Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is a Paramatma, Supersoul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much for your wonderful recitation. And welcome, dear devotees, to today's session. I do apologize for the confusion. I'm not sure who was meant to be doing today's session, but anyway, we got there in the end. And welcome to you, all of you. If anyone's joining us for the first time, a very welcome to you. We've called the session Chat Plus. We now begin the recitation and study of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we are, first of all, studying a first canto. We finished the first chapter of the first canto, which was entitled Questions by the Sages. And now we're starting today, the second chapter, which is entitled Divinity and Divine Service. And I'm not even sure what's the purport like, but anyway, we shall read and discuss text 1 and move on to text 2 if we need to. But we'll start off by reciting the Mangala Charan prayers. You all can join me via unmuted mics. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Malitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vyasa Uvacha iti samprasna samitritso ritsto vipranam Roma arshanaha pratipujya vachastesham pravaktum upachakrame. The word for word synonyms. Vyasa uvacha. Vyasa said, iti, thus. Some prashna, perfect inquiries. Some ritstaha, perfectly satisfied. Vipranam, of the sages there. Roma Arshanahi, the son of Roma Arshana, namely Ugrashrava. Pratipruja, after thanking them. Vachaha, words. Tesham, they. Pravaktum, to reply to them. Upachakrame, attempted. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ugrashrava Sutta Goswami, the son of Roma Arshana, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, it's only one line purport. The sages of Naimisaranya asked Sutta Goswami 6 questions, and so he is answering them one by one. So this chapter, it is broken up into 4 main sections. The first section is Sutta Goswami's reply to the 6 questions that the sages asked. Now, if we may recall, the Bhagavatam starts with 88,000 sages gathered at the forest of Naimisaranya. And the reason that they have gathered is that these great sages, they have the ability to see the approaching Kali Yuga. And they could see into the future. And just having visibility of the darkness of Kali Yuga, being compassionate by nature, they decided that they needed to do something. At first, they were not sure exactly what to do because it was such an enormous task. This whole force of Kali Yuga is such a formidable, powerful force. So much in ignorance. You know, how do you hold back such a force? How do you empower people caught up in this dark age to overcome such a force? It's indeed a very difficult. So that was their consideration. And it is explained in the Bhagavatam that after discussing among themselves, they first decided that the best course of action was to undertake a fire yagya. They said this normally when we do a fire yagya, we chant the mantras, you know, it creates a very powerful environment. And maybe if we do one for 100 years, and all 88,000 of us chant, that will certainly be a powerful force. And maybe this will do it. Maybe this will do it. So they embarked on this action. And for 100 years, they all chanted mantras. And they poured the ghee in the fire. And they chanted swaha every time. But after 100 years, all of them had this very clear perception that this is not doing it. This is not going to do it. And all of them felt that the only thing that happened over the 100 years is that their faces had become black from the soot. And there was just a sense of despondency among all of these great thinkers. They had started off with all of these good intentions, wanting to do some good. And now they hit a dead end. And it is explained that they were all feeling so despondent, really, really despondent, not knowing what to do. And suddenly they saw this great effulgent sage This great effulgent sage walking towards them with a few of his associates. And when they saw this great personality, immediately their hearts lifted up. And that great personality was Sutta Goswami, the son of Roma Arshana. So they all approached Sutta Goswami. They came across him, and Sutta Goswami, being such a great personality, he could just pick up the atmosphere. That there was a sense of despondency and hopelessness among all of these sages, not knowing what to do, confusion. So they explained the dilemmas to Sutta Goswami. And then Sutta Goswami immediately told them, don't worry. Don't worry. I have just come out of the 7-day conversation between Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. And I sat in that assembly. And by sitting in that assembly and hearing the questions posed by Parikshit Maharaj and the answer given by Shukadev Goswami, I think I have the answer for you. And there was just jubilation among all of the sages. They were just so excited. Yes, we may have found the solution. And they immediately welcomed Sutta Goswami in the assembly. They gave him an elevated and a proper seat. They welcomed him. And then they said, okay, what do we do next? And they decided that the best is if they ask some specific questions.
Crunchy, crazy good fun.
So they said, there's 88,000 of us here. If all of us start asking questions, it's going to be quite chaotic. So let us choose one spokesperson, right? And let's formulate among ourselves what we deem to be the 6 most important questions. And once we have that, then we'll pose that to Sutta Goswami. So that's what they did. They chose Shaunaka Rishi to be their spokesperson. That's why we've read in the first chapter, Shaunaka Uvacha. And then they decided they'll formulate 6 questions. They came up with 6 questions. And these are, the first chapter is largely about them asking these 6 questions. And maybe we'll just quickly go through those 6 questions. The first question which was in text number 9. What is the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general? What a brilliant question. What is the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general? Then second question is, explain the essence of all scriptures for the good of all living beings. Again, such a brilliant question. Knowing that the residents of Kali Yuga, they don't have time to read and study the scriptures, neither that they have the ability. And if we can get the essence of the scriptures from Sutta Goswami, that'll be fantastic. Third question, why did the Lord appear in the womb of Devaki and as the son of Vasudeva? So they wanted to know more about Lord Krishna. The fourth question was, please describe the adventures, the Lord's adventures in his various incarnations. That is the Purusha avatars. So they first wanted to know about the Purusha avatars. Then the fifth question was, please narrate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord's multi-incarnations. So question 4 was the Purusha avatars, means the avatars who are related to the process of creation. Those are the Purusha avatars. And then the fifth question was, now tell us about the pastimes of the Lord's multi-incarnations, the Lila avatars. And then they went to the sixth question, which was also very, very pertinent and very important. And the sixth question was, after Lord Krishna departed from this planet back to his abode, in whom did the religious principles take shelter of? Again, a very good, when Lord Krishna was here, the Lord is the personification of Dharma. And when he left, where did Dharma take, religious principles take shelter? So these were the six questions that we went through, and that took us right to text number 23. The sixth question was the last text of chapter 1. So in this chapter, Sutta Goswami, for the first time, he speaks. So all of these sages have now posed their questions to Sutta Goswami, and in this chapter, he speaks. And he speaks. And this chapter is broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 sections. 6 sections is broken down. Text number 1 to 7 is Sutta Goswami's response to the 6 questions. Text 8 to 15 is Sutta Goswami explain how bhakti is to be gained by one's prescribed duties. 16 to 22 is the process of bhakti. 23 to 29 is how only Krishna is meant to be worshipped. 30 to 33 is answer to question 4 in particular. And then the last section is 34 is answers to question 3 in particular. So this is the essence of this chapter, 34 verses, and we will start. So it's very interesting, Sutta Goswami, when he speaks here for the first time in answer to the questions, how he responds. It says here, samprashna. Prashna means questions. And some, like, Sankirtan comes from the word some, it means great or perfect questions. So the first thing he said is, thank you. Thank you very much for your samprashna, your perfect questions. And this is very important for us to take note of. That the questions we ask should be very pleasing. Should be very pleasing. So Sutta Goswami was very pleased with the 6 questions they asked. And it's funny, Prabhupada, when he first went to New York, the devotee said, Prabhupada, I think it'll be good if we put a telephone in your room. In America, it's always good, everyone has a telephone. Prabhupada said, okay, put a telephone. And in one lecture, Prabhupada says, they put telephone in my office, and every time the phone was ringing, tring, 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 and I would answer. And then they would say, Swamiji, how are you feeling today? Have you eaten something nice, Swamiji? And Prabhupada said, after some time, I said, take out this telephone from my office. Take out. Because they're not asking the right questions. When we meet a saintly person, it is said, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra hai, lava matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hai. That the association of the devotees are so powerful. Even a moment, lava matra, in Vedic time, there are even smaller units than a second. In Western time, the second is the smallest unit of time. But in Vedic time, there are even fractions and fractions of a second. And a fraction of a second, I think it's 1/8 of a fraction, is called a lava matra. And it is said, even within 1/8 of a fraction of a second, if one meets a pure devotee, then one can attain perfection. And one does not go and ask a pure devotee or a great sadhu irrelevant things. Irrelevant things. One does not make casual conversations with great personalities. We must, if we are reading properly, we will always have so many questions, and we are hearing properly. We'll have so many questions about our spiritual life. And we should write those questions down, and we should keep those questions. And if ever we get the opportunity to meet a saintly person, we should ask questions that are in relation to the Shastra, that we arise from our hearing and reading. And when we ask such questions to great personalities, they are very pleased. We see very similar thing happen when Shukadev Goswami speaks for the very first time. The very first thing he speaks is, and the same word is used there, prashna. He praises Parikshit Maharaj. He says, your questions are very nice. Because by such questions, all the world will be benefited. Will be benefited. And then it says here, they use the word samritstaha, perfectly satisfied. Who was perfectly satisfied? Sutta Goswami. He felt perfectly satisfied by the questions of the sages there. And then what is the first thing he does? So after thanks, so the second thing, after praising them, it says here, prati puja. He thanks them. He thanks them. And when someone is pleased, they say thank you. You'll see Srila Prabhupada, when we hear his lectures, what does Srila Prabhupada always finish his lectures with? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Nitai Mata, you wanted to say something?
I was saying the same. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhupada. Thank you very much. So Prabhupada was very pleased with the devotees when they listened attentively and they asked good questions. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena. See, you see in this verse to Bhagavad Gita, prashnena, paripratena, prashnena. That tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. That we inquire submissively. Prashna, questions. And when the seers of the truth are pleased, then their hearts become very open to reveal knowledge. The word here is vachaha, pravaktum. Then he replied to them. He thanked them, and then he replied to them. And he says, one by one. So although this is a very short verse, a very short purport, there is so much of meaning, so much we can learn just from this response, very first response by Sutta Goswami. So important in our spiritual life, how to inquire submissively. Tadvidi pranipatena, pariprashnena, sevaya. How to inquire with the right mood. So maybe what it is already 8:30. Maybe I should stop here and take any questions, comments, or reflections that anyone may have. Any questions, comments, or reflections?
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
There's some echo, but Sailesh Prabhu, but yeah, go on.
Can you hear me now, Prabhu?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, my wife and I were logged on different devices. Apologies. So I have a question, Prabhuji. With respect to sadhu sangha
Yes.
and a moment of association,
Yes.
presumably the nature of the individual that is meeting the sadhu is also important. It is not just the sangha, but the openness of one's heart, because in history you see individuals like Duryodhana, who is constantly in the sangha of great sadhus and Bhishma there, but that sangha had no effect on his consciousness. So presumably the sangha requires an openness of one's heart in order for the sangha to actually have an effect.
That's correct. That's correct, Salesh Prabhu. Two things are required. Prabhupada says in one purport, for there to be conception between the man and woman, the man needs to be potent and the woman needs to be fertile. When you have a potent man and a fertile woman, then conception will take place. So in the same way, in the Vedic science, the speaker needs to be qualified. And the qualification is he needs to have fully understood the science of Krishna and to be a pure devotee of Krishna. And in terms of the person receiving, the main quality, or some of the main qualities that are explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Firstly, one should be non-envious. One needs to be non-envious, and one needs to be sincere and eager. So these qualities, they're non-envious, sincere, and eager to want to understand. And Prabhupada said, one of the qualifications is one should feel completely frustrated in this material world. One should feel that I can't move anymore. I can't tolerate, being in ignorance. And then when one is in this mood, not that, it's the fashion to go meet a saintly person. It's the fashion to ask some questions, so I will come up. No, the condition of the heart must be, I've had it for this material. I'm frustrated. I need to come out. I need the mercy of the Lord. When that is there, then there's perfect transmission of spiritual knowledge. So thank you for that point. Very important point, Salesh Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for a very wonderful nectarian class and summary of this chapter 1. Really appreciate your love for the Bhagavatam is really, it comes through, Prabhuji, so thank you. Forgive me for pointing out just 114 says 1,000-year sacrifice. I think
1,000 years. Okay.
Your love is so great. I think you're enthused into making it 100 years, but it's actually 1,000 years. Thank you, Prabhuji. Forgive me for pointing it out.
No, it makes it all the more pertinent, I think. For 1,000 years they tried and couldn't work. It emphasizes the frustration and the despondency they must have felt. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out, Salesh Prabhu. No difficulty there. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or questions by anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mama.
Hare Krishna, it's wonderful. Thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhuji. My question was that, there is the book Bhagavat, and then there is the person Bhagavat.
Yes.
So in terms of the potency that we receive in associating even for a moment, would Srila Prabhupada's books be equivalent in potency if we even came across them for a split of a second or for a moment? Would that be the same potency?
Absolutely. Once someone asked Srila Prabhupada, we've got the book Bhagavat and we have the person Bhagavat, right? And normally you say that the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat is equally important. but Srila Prabhupada is one a bit more important than the other. Did you hear the answer to this question anytime, Emma Mataji?
No, Prabhuji, I haven't. No.
Prabhupada gave a very unique answer. Prabhupada said, the person Bhagavat is more important. And the devotee said, why Srila Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, because he can pull your ears. He can pull your ears. Meaning that, the word Bhagavat is there. And the living Bhagavat, who is seen person, who is a living example of the Bhagavat, if ever we deviate from the word Bhagavat, he'll pull our ears and show us the way. So I heard that said one time, and I found that very interesting.
Wonderful, Prabhuji. That explains it nicely. Thank you. Can I just check one more thing, Prabhuji? Sorry.
Sure.
So, when you said, I've forgotten the question now. Oh, no, it's gone now. Sorry, Prabhuji.
Okay, if you remember it, you can come back.
Yes, okay.
If anyone else has got any other question or reflection, it doesn't have to be a question. Reflection means what have you taken away that's probably stuck more than anything else in today's session, that you take away when you go to bed, and just before you put the light off, you'll be thinking about this particular point. Anyone? Anyone is taking anything in particular away today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you for such a wonderful class on a very small purport as well, Prabhuji. Yeah, realization is like when you mentioned about ask good questions.
Yes.
But have your groundwork also done. Like, so you have to read the book thoroughly. So much material is there. So many classes are there. And then whenever you come across a question, write them.
Yes.
So that when the opportunity comes, you can ask that question and clarify your doubt rather than keeping that doubt and having the other reading also get impacted because of that. And on the point where you mentioned about sincerity and ask the question, Prabhuji, I just want to share a story which I recently heard from one of the Prabhuji. It is very, very nice, I felt, so I just want to share that.
Sure.
I don't know the place, Prabhuji, but there was a devotee, and the teacher was telling him the story, and he asked a question. He come up with a question saying that, does the God exist in the stone as well? So he asked the question. Teacher somehow he got angry and asked him to get out from the classroom. He came out and he got so frustrated, but he left the country itself and he reached US. And once he reached US, as usual, like anybody reaching US, they go to drunk. They're drunk. So he became a drunkard and he fell in a very filthy place. And when he woke up, he found a book with an open page of Srila Prabhupada, and it is written that God exists in living and non-living. And he read the address on the book. He found the ISKCON temple. He went to ISKCON temple, and it was Mangala Aarati time. And he asked a question to one of the Prabhuji there that, do your God exist in a filthy place as well? I mean, the people who are getting ready for Mangala Aarati, they got little frustrated, but they said, okay, because he's asking a question and about the Lord, they thought, okay, we'll give him some time. And he was allowed to watch the Mangala Aarati program, and he enjoyed the complete Mangala Aarati program. Then he sat for the Bhagavatam class. He heard the Bhagavatam class, and then his question was clarified by the Prabhuji there. And then later he became a proper devotee, and his name is Airavat Das.
Oh, wonderful.
So I heard this, when this story I had, like, Lord shows the way. When you have that sincerity in you, then Lord immediately will show you the way as well. Otherwise, in a filthy place, it's very hard to find a book, and that too, it is open with a question which is going in his mind. So that's what I want to share that. That's it.
Thank you very much, Bhadda Saradi Prabhu. That's a wonderful story. While you were speaking, I also thought of one story about the qualification of a listener. Once there was a big scholar that went to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master. And this scholar, he had many high questions, and he felt, I can only ask the Acharya. No one else can answer these questions to me. So he went and he asked Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He says, met him, got his audience, and he said, I've got some really important questions that I need to ask you. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you go to the kitchen, you spend a few hours washing the pots, and after you finish washing the pots, you come to me. So this man, he couldn't understand what was going on. What's the relevance of washing pots to getting answers to his questions? And he said, anyway, I'll do it. So he went to the kitchen, and for hours he scrubbed the pots, scrubbed the pots, scrubbed the pots. And after he finished, he went back to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, okay, you can ask your question. And then he said, Maharaj, I don't know what happened, but while I was washing the pots, somehow or the other, all of the answers to my questions came. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, thank you very much. He was trying to show the importance of the right mood when asking questions. So I'll share that. Hare Krishna. There's a question from statement from Bhagavati Mataji. We have no protection other than Krishna's lotus feet. To get out of this material world and Maya, the illusion, we must totally surrender to Krishna. I think you've summarized our philosophy in 2 sentences there, Bhagavati Mataji. Thank you so much.
I think, Prabhuji, those are the words which Kunti Mata says in her prayers, and that's what she makes him understand when she says goodbye to him. She doesn't want to say goodbye because she says that, I don't think so we will be protected, even though, without your, association, they will not be protected after the war. That's what she thinks. And those are her words. But really that has touched my life so much that I really believe in those words now.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, very nice words. Yeah,
That's
thank you.
cool.
But your class been amazing today. You have opened our eyes in what exactly those 6 questions can help us with. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay. I don't know, Ima Mataji, if you remembered your question now.
Yes, Prabhuji, my question was about, when you said you need to ask the right questions when you come across Maharaj or any sort of spiritual master. But we feel so overwhelmed when we see Maharaj that all the questions that we've written down, we kind of forget to ask, and we just want to just absorb that moment that he's there in physical presence in front of us. So how would you deal with that, Prabhuji? Because you do write questions down when we can't ask those questions at the right time.
We can prepare maybe.
Yeah, we just become sort of, yeah.
We know Maharaj is here, we know Maharaj is coming, and we know he will be pleased if we ask some nice questions. Yes. He doesn't want, pleasantries. A spiritual master means question and answer. So by asking a nice question, he'll be pleased. So let me prepare mentally to ask these nice questions. Yeah.
That's a good mindset to have. Thank you, Prabhuji. That helps a lot.
Yeah, well, I understand. We all find ourselves overwhelmed in the presence of
that's it. Yes.
Great spiritual personality.
That's right. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Wonderful class. Hare
Krishna. So it is 8:46. Anyone else likes to say or add anything? Thank you, Prabhu. Oh, Mataji. I'm not sure, but Hare Krishna, it was nice to hear of the elation of the asks of the 6 questions. Yes, it was very nice. So, yeah, we'll stop here today, dear devotees. Thank you. I mean, It was a very impromptu session. We were a bit late. I don't know what happened, but we got there in the end by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for your patience and your attentive hearing. All glories to your service. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa
Sindhubhya
Sindhuveva
eva
cha,
Patitanam
Patitana
Pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namaha.
Vaishnava.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for
Srila
the
Prabhupada
information.
ki jai.
Krishna
Prabhu
Prabhu.
Prabhu Prabhuji,
Thank
thank you very much.
Hare
Thank you.
Wonderful class.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.